This is a Fox News alert. News from the President of the United States that there has been an attack inside Iran. Just moments ago, President Donald Trump putting out on Truth Social, we have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. Again, this from President Donald Trump. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Again, that's just seconds ago from President Donald Trump on Truth Social, suggesting that those B-2 bombers that perhaps were on the way may have been behind this. We'll get more details on these 3 sites that the president said has been attacked inside Iran. This comes after days of negotiations to try to get Iran to the negotiating table. The President of the United States saying it would have to be unconditional surrender, saying enrichment would have to stop. We heard from negotiations in Europe that that was not being accepted by the Iranians, that they would not stop enriching uranium. There was a thought that this could go as long as 2 weeks, as the president said he would decide within 2 weeks. However, 2 days is within 2 weeks. And now word from President Donald Trump that these attacks have happened. Again, interesting that 3 sites have been struck by U.S. bombers. And this, again, we'll get more information about the exact targets and what bombs were used. We expect that the GBU-57, the bunker buster, the massive penetrator bomb, may have been one of those used. Fordo is a nuclear facility inside Iran that is roughly a half-mile deep underneath a rock mountain-like facility that has been said to be the site of a lot of the enrichment capability. Esfahan, believed to be a storage facility for enriched uranium, and Natanz, another part of the nuclear facilities. They have several throughout Iran. It has been long described as a very difficult and tedious effort to go after these nuclear sites, but the U.S., for the first time, launching an attack inside Iran. Again, the President of the United States saying all of the planes are out of Iranian airspace. The bombings do continue by the Israelis inside Iran as this back and forth volley between Israel and Iran has continued for some 2 weeks. We expect to hear more about this operation, not only from the Pentagon, but perhaps from the White House, although the White House this evening, has called a lid, as far as meaning no one will talk after that. That may be changing now. Obviously, we have this Truth Social post from President Donald Trump.
Okay. So, first and foremost, I'd like to give honor and glory into the Most High God Yahweh, Bahashim Mashiach Malak Yahushai. Man, and as you can see, biblical prophecy is moving forward and forward as we speak. We see all throughout the scriptures, prophecies about, a large global conflict that's going to happen. And we inch closer and closer, right? Now, I know what you're probably thinking, well, what does U.S. bombing Iran have to do with anything, right? Because if you know anything about biblical prophecy, you know that Babylon the Great, which is America, or Babylon the Great is America, and is prophesied to be absolutely destroyed, right? Now, if you did know that, I have plenty of videos that you can look into that can show you how Babylon the Great gets destroyed, but here's a few, right? Real quick. This is Jeremiah chapter 50, and we can jump to verse 8. Let's start at verse 9. It says, "For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, right? And they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. And Chaldee shall become a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith the Lord, right? So Babylon the Great is going to be destroyed, right? It's going to be absolutely destroyed, right? Let's keep going. Let's jump to verse 13, actually. Because of the wrath of the Lord, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Everyone that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at her plagues. So Babylon is told to be wholly desolate, meaning to be absolutely desolate and destroyed, right? Verse 14 says, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow. What is this bow? This bow is what you would call a thermonuclear hypersonic missile, right? It says, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she has sinned against the Lord, right? Shout against her round about. She has given her hand. Her foundations are fallen. Her walls are thrown down. For it is the vengeance of the Lord. Take vengeance upon her as she hath done. Do unto her, right? So we see right here that Babylon is to be absolutely destroyed by the strength of arrows, right? By arrows being shot as a mighty expert man, right? Now we also see in scriptures like Isaiah chapter 13 how exactly Babylon falls, and an example that we can look at, right? This is Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 19. It says this, and Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So Babylon not being inhabited ever again, being utterly destroyed, it's going to be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Verse 20, it shall never be inhabited, right? How was Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed? It was destroyed to the point that it will never, to the point that it can never be inhabited, right? It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there, right? So Babylon is going to be utterly destroyed, right? As Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. If you know anything about Sodom and Gomorrah, the Most High rained down from heaven on Sodom and Gomorrah and destroyed it utterly, right? Let's grab this real quick. Genesis chapter 19. Salakia. Let me see. And look, if and here's a prime example. This is Genesis 19:13, right? And it says this, for we will destroy this place because the cry of them is waxing great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it, right? And this right here is just as Sodom and Gomorrah was set to fall, Babylon is going to fall in the same way, right? Because of the wickedness, right? Because the cry of it has waxing great before the face of the Lord, right? Let's keep going. Let's jump down. Salakia. Right around. Watch this. Okay. Okay. Yeah, start the verse. Just jump to 28, right? And it says this. Genesis 19:28, and it says, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace, right? As a furnace, meaning that black smoke. It was absolutely destroyed, right? And it came to pass when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt, right? So Babylon was utterly destroyed to the point that the smoke raised up into the sky as a furnace, right? So Babylon was to be destroyed like Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, real quick, here's another example of what Sodom and Gomorrah is, right? This is Jude chapter 1 and verse 7. It's like I gotta grab something real quick. And it says this. Even even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in the like manner, giving themselves to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth an example. So Sodom and Gomorrah was an example, right? Suffering the vengeance of eternal fire, right? So Sodom and Gomorrah suffer the vengeance of eternal fire, and that's an example of how Babylon the Great is going to fall, because we saw that, right? Let's just look real quick and see what we can find in regards to Sodom, Gomorrah, right? Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, destroyed. Okay, biblical narrative. Let's see what we can find. Okay, not really looking for that. Other biblical accounts. Look, Sodom and Gomorrah becomes a byword for destruction and desolation. So we see that Sodom and Gomorrah it's an example of destruction and desolation. Now I'm trying to look at, let me see, Sodom and Gomorrah, the actual land. Let me see. Dead Sea, devastated earthquake. Major fall of the Jordan. There are no known contemporary accounts of the seismic activity. Theory suggesting that. Let me see. This might be around that area. Slovakia. See what we can find. Bear with me. Okay. Alright, so nothing pertaining to Sodom and Gomorrah, but we do see many places that are let me see. Yeah, this might be it. Southwestern tip of the Dead Sea. Yeah, it might be around here. States that locals inhabited cities. Okay, here we go. Watch this. So let's check this out right here, right? This is possible sites. It says the ancient Greek historiographer states that the locals living near a Masada, as opposed to Masada, say that there were once 13 inhabited cities in the region, of which Sodom was the metropolis. Strabo identifies a limestone and salt hill at the southwestern tip of the Dead Sea, and Mount Sodom, Hebrew of Sedum or Arabic, yada yada, ruins nearby as the site of the biblical Sodom, right? So we see that there is a place that people identify as Sodom, right? Okay, people going to say that that's Lot's wife, but even when you go into the place, people even talk about how there's sulfur rocks all around the place. This place is completely uninhabitable, right? Let's see what we read. Let's see. Okay, Mount Sodom began its rise hundreds and thousands of years ago and continues to grow taller. All right, movements of the Great Rift Valley system, along with the pressure generated by the slow accumulation of earth and rock, pressed down on the salt layer, creating Mount Sodom. Okay. Cat by layer of limestone, clay, and conglomerate that was dragged along and squeezed. Okay. Let me see. There was something I was looking for, man. If I could just find it. Well, that's just, I'm not going to worry too much about that. But you get the point. Babylon is going to go out like Sodom and Gomorrah was, right? And there's scriptures that talk about it. Babylon will be surrounded by an assembly of great nations, and they will be destroyed, right? Let's look a little bit more specifically on what nations would play a role in destroying Babylon the Great, right? Real quick, right? What do we see? This is This is Revelation 17, and let's start at verse 4. And it says, "And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication." Right? We liken this unto this is Babylon the Great. This is the harlot, which is Babylon the Great. The image of Babylon the Great is the Statue of Liberty, which is a prime example of the woman with a golden cup in her hand. Right? And it says, "And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I can tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath 7 heads and 10 horns." Right? Let's jump real quick, right, to Revelation 17, and let me see, 16. It says this: "And the 10 horns which thou sawest," if you know anything about the 10 horns, this is what you will call NATO and the EU. Not just NATO and the EU, but really all of Europe. A plethora of nations in Europe that originate from the ancient Roman Empire, pretty much. And we're going to go into these nations. We're not going to go too much into these nations, but pretty much these nations are pre-Renaissance Greece, Rome, Spain, France. Let's see who else. Germany, Britain, and Russia, along with other nations that surround them. Right. But it says this, and it says, "The 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire." Right? So we see that Babylon is said to be destroyed, but it's going to be destroyed by this beast, right? That many people understand as the revised Roman Empire, right? And again, not going to go too much into this, but I will acknowledge that that these nations, but I will go into showing that these nations are the ones that will hate the whore and want to destroy her, right? The whore being Babylon the Great. Verse 17: "For God hath put it in her, God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled." Right? "And the woman which thou sawest is the great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth." Right? Which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Right? So you think we're done with that? No. Remember, this is the dragon, the 7 heads and 10 horns. We see that this is the one that the whore stands on top of, that gets sick of the whore and that burns her with fire. Let's jump to Revelation 20 and see. Let's see about this whore real quick. Revelation chapter 20 and verse 7, and it says, "And when when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison." Who is Satan? Real quick, we can jump down and go check and go into who is Satan. This is Revelation chapter 12 and 12 and let me see. All right, watch this. Revelation 12 and 3, and it says, "And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon," this is Satan, "having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns on his heads." Right? This is the dragon. This is Satan. How do you know? Verse 9 tells you, right? "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world." Let's think about it. The great dragon, the devil and Satan, the one that deceived the whole world, right? This is the one that has 7 heads and 10 horns, right? The one that the whore sits on top of, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels was cast out with him. Right? That's a whole nother conversation, But I've done videos on this earlier in my YouTube days, right? But we see who the seven heads and ten horns is, right? So, and who Satan is, right? Let's jump to verse 7. And it says, "And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison and shall go out to deceive the nations." Okay, what do these 1,000 years speak of? These speak of the 1,000 year period from when Rome fell to when Rome rose back up again, right? When you read Revelation 13, it likens Rome, or the beast, unto a nation who was wounded, who had a wound but healed, right? That's literally how Rome went down. Rome was wounded, they fell for 1,000 years, they came back up into power, right? So that 1,000 year period is a literal 1,000 year period that pertains to the time that Satan, which is the so-called white man, which are the descendants of the Romans, chiefly descendants of Edom, that would not be destructive or pushing out their agenda all throughout the world, as they did when they were Rome, right? And it says Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, right, and shall go out to deceive the nations. Right after the Renaissance, you see the word Renaissance means rebirth, but you see a complete change in the world. You start hearing more about the new world, right? The race to the new world, right? This is where the discovery of the Americas happens. This is where slavery starts to happen around 1441 in Portugal, and with the Portuguese taking slaves out of West Africa. Then about 50 years later, the same thing happens with them going to the Americas, of rape robbing and murdering the native indigenous people, right? This is the beginning of the end, right? So we see that when they went out to deceive the nations, they've completely pushed out white supremacy, right? All throughout the world. But as we keep going, it says they shall deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, right? Gog and Magog, right? Gog and Magog. Why is this important? Because the devil and Satan is accredited to being a part of Gog and Magog, right? Gog and Magog, right? It says to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. So why is this important, right? Because this is the devil and Satan. They've just given the devil and Satan a landmass, right? And it sometimes I try to grab it in other translations, but it doesn't really do much. You know what I'm saying? Like, it don't really speak on certain things as like I would want it to. But right here we can just grab it real quick. See, he will go out to deceive the nations, called Gog and Magog in every corner of the earth. He will gather them together for battle, a mighty army as numberless as sand of the sea. So it's a weird, it translates weird, right? But as we see that we see that Gog and Magog will be the one that's a part of this beast system that's going to be deceiving the whole world, right? And when you look at Gog and Magog, we see prophecies that pertain to Gog and Magog, like Russia, or certain European powers that are in power now, right? So it says, so this is the one that's accredited, right? And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. Who did it devour? This is how you know this is talking about Gog and Magog, right? Gog and Magog is the devil and Satan. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire, right, and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever, right? So what do we see? We see the devil shall go out to deceive the nations, which are in the four quarters of the earth. That is the whole world, right? Gog and Magog, to gather them to battle, right? And obviously Satan, which is dwelling on the people of Gog and Magog, which is Russia and all throughout Eastern Europe, will be causing them to, uh, you know, be brought together to battle to fight against the children of Israel, right? So we see that Gog and Magog is directly associated with the devil and Satan, right? That the devil and Satan is directly associated, or is the nations of the seven heads and the 10 horns. Those are the ones that killed the whore, which is Babylon the Great, which is America, right? I'm going to prove this is Russia anyway. I haven't in previous videos, but I'm going to continue to prove it, right? And it says right here in verse 10, and the devil that deceived was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and they shall be tormented day and night forever and ever, right? So as you can see, this is a prophecy pertaining to Gog and Magog, right? Now, what's so special about Gog and Magog? Right here, it says this. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, right? If you understand anything about Gog and Magog, or Salakia, Gog, the land of Magog, right? The land of Magog, right? So it's talking about Magog, right? Right? Gog is the land of Magog, right? The chief prince of Meshech. Now I've brought this up in previous videos, but what does Meshech mean, right? Meshech is a city, right? Let's see. Okay, Meshech. Watch this. Okay, Meshech is mentioned along with Tubal. Okay, as principalities of Gog, prince of Magog, right? Meshech, price or precious. All right, here we go. Right, beginning 16th century, some European scholars proposed that the idea of Moscovits had stemmed from Meshech. Sir Walter Riley attributes this opinion to Philip Melanchthon and to Benito, and it was also followed later by Jonathan Edwards. Moreover, according to a legend first appearing in about 1674, Moscova was founded by King Masok, son of Japhet Meshech, and was named for him and his wife Kiva, right? So again, people identify Moscow with Meshech. So the chief prince of Meshech is the chief ruler of Moscow, right? So again, the chief ruler of Moscow is a part of Magog. Who's the chief ruler of Moscow? Vladimir Putin. That's obvious, right? Let's keep going. And again, I had none of this planned, so if it seems all out of order, Salakia, right? This is completely through the Spirit, Lord willing, and was not necessarily all the way thought out and planned, right? So let's keep going. It says, I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth in all thy army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, right? So we see that Gog, the land of Magog, which is the one that is which is literally the same one that is talking about in Revelation chapter 20. It's the same prophecy. Satan, it just doesn't mention Satan in this one, but this one it's telling you that Gog and Magog is the one that's going to surround themselves or compass the camp of the children of Israel, right? But let's jump to verse 8 real quick, then I'm gonna jump back up earlier, right? And it says, and after many days thou shalt be visited, in the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, talking about Israel, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. And thou shalt ascend and come like a storm, thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands and many people with thee, right? This is what Russia's going to do. Thus saith the Lord God, it shall also come to pass that at that same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought, right? And thou shalt say, I will go up into the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest and dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates, right? To take a spoil and to take a prey, to turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods that dwell in the midst of the land, right? So we see that that there would be a people group that would be in the land, which says that it's Israel, and that the chief prince of Moscow and other nations are going to come together to fight against. Understand that. Other nations are going to come together and they're going to fight against this people group, right? These nations are going to go and they're going to fight against this specific people group, right? Let's grab this real quick. And this is the same nation in Revelation. Again, the devil and Satan. Again, if you watch my earlier videos, there's a further in-depth breakdown of the devil and Satan, which proves that it's Edom. When you go to Revelation 12, verse 1 through about 5, it tells you that the beast sought to devour the child as soon as he were born. That is a direct correlation to Matthew chapter 2, where Herod the Great, which is an Edomite, says that he wanted to see the child, but conspired against the child that he could kill him as soon as he were born. That is a direct correlation between the two. And most scholars will agree to that, right? We just say that shows that that's Edom, right? So again, Edom is attributed to this nation that will be in Gog and Magog, right? Let's see. Salakia, right? So it says, they will compass the camp of the saints about in the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them, right? So we see that that's also being talked about in Ezekiel, right? That fire will come down from heaven on this nation. Salakia. You jump to verse 9. Watch this. And I will send fire. Look, this is just further on down, just talking about it. Ezekiel 39 and verse 4, and it says, and thou shalt fall upon the mountains of Israel, thou and all thy bands, and the people that is with thee. I will give thee unto the ravenous birds of every sort, and the beasts of the field to be devoured. Thou shalt fall upon the open field, for I have spoken it, saith the Lord God. I will send fire on Magog, and among them that dwell carelessly in the isles, right? These are the Western European nations, as well as other nations that are in the coasts, right? And they shall know that I am the Lord. So will I make my name holy in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them pollute my holy name anymore. And the heathen shall know that I am the Lord God, that I am the Lord Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel, right? So we see that fire is going to come down from heaven. Again, this is talking about Moscow, the chief prince of Moscow. Look at verse 1. Therefore, thou son of man, prophesy against Gog, and say, thus saith the Lord God, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, which is the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, the chief prince of Moscow, right? So we see that Russia, just so we understand where I'm at, Russia is going to be the chief leader of the 7 heads and the 10 horns at one point in time, right? I just read to you earlier, I forgot, I didn't actually. I just read to you earlier that the 7 heads and 10 horns are going to hate the whore and burn her with fire, right? Right? The 7 heads and the 10 horns are going to hate the whore and burn her with fire, right? Let me see. Look, so we see that this great whore, the woman, right? Look, verse 3, Revelation 17:3. So he carried me away into into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Right. So this is the woman that's sitting upon the scarlet-colored beast. She sits on the scarlet-colored beast, meaning she has dominion over it. Right. She has control over these nations, right? Which like I said, are the European powers, right? Now Gog and Magog, which is Russia, right? That is the one that's going to be the ones that fight against the Lord, right? So at the time, and if you understand biblical prophecy, at one time, we see that Babylon the Great sits over the scarlet colored beast. Then we see that the scarlet colored beast destroys the whore, right? The 7 heads and the 10 horns. Now we see that the scarlet colored beast, which is the devil and Satan, is going to stand over and fight against the children of Israel, and it's going to cause them to be destroyed by the Lord, right? With that, we see Gog and Magog being brought up. And when you go into Gog and Magog, you see that this is talking about Russia. So Russia becomes the chiefest leader of the 7 heads and 10 horns, right? As you see written in Ezekiel, that they're going to that Gog and Magog, the chief prince of Meshach, and is going to be the one that has a company of nations round about it to go against the children of Israel, right? So this is what that shows you. It shows you, one, Babylon the Great sat on the whore, which is the whore, sat on the scarlet-colored beast, which is the devil and Satan. The devil and Satan fights against the whore and destroys her and burns her with fire, right? These are the assembly of great nations, right? The chiefest of these nations is Russia. Why? How do we know that? Because Revelation 20 and Ezekiel 38 show you that the devil and Satan, particularly would be those that are in Gog and Magog, right? Specifically, the chief prince of Moscow would be the leader of them. So at one moment, it's the whore that sits on them. They hate the whore and destroy the whore, which is Babylon the Great. And now, the chiefest of them is the chief prince of Moscow, Russia, which is Vladimir Putin, which would be Vladimir Putin if it were to happen now, right? That doesn't make sense. Definitely watch my other videos. But we see, Slovakia. My point being is that Russia is going to be the leader of the next world. Not the next world. Is going to be the next leader in rulership, right? Before the return of the Messiah, right? Now, as we are in Ezekiel 38, this kind of has to do with our point today, with everyone hearing about everything going on in Iran. They bombed Iran. Wow, they're going to try to destroy Iran, all this other stuff. They're not going to be able to, right? Why? Because look, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, with them, all of them with shield and helmets, right? Gomer and all his bands, and the house of Togomar of the north quarters and all his bands, many people with thee, right? Many people with thee. So we see that there are many people, that there are many people that'll be with wanted to look for something. Bear with me. That there are many people that wanted to be that are to be a part of this coalition, or this group of great nations, this assembly of great nations, right? So let me see. Give me 1 second. All right, Salakia. Right, so we see who's a part of this. Who's a part of this? Persia. Real quick, if we type in who's Persia, Salakia, Persia, right? Persia. Who is Persia, right? Persia is one of the nations that will be here when the Messiah returns, right? Because this is what this prophecy is about. Them standing against the children of Israel and the Lord returning and destroying them, right? This is a former country in southwestern Asia, now called Iran. Boom. Right? Iran is Persia, and Persia is going to be the one that stands with the devil and Satan, which is the beast system, the beast, after destroying the whore. So who's going to be with the beast? Persia, right? Persia is going to be with the beast, right? It's now called Persia. The ancient kingdom of Persia became the domain of a Achaemenid dynasty in the 6th century. Under Cyrus the Great, Persia became the center of powerful empire. Okay, cool. We got the point. We understand that it's Iran. Right now, let's look into Gomer. It refers to the Cimmerians, Pontic, Caspian, Steppe. Okay, the Gomerites, Anatolian. Okay, this is obviously another European power. So like I'm just looking for a specific. Let's see what we can find. Who is Gomer? Refers to the Cimmerians, right? Where is Cimmerian? Now, the Cimmerians, not the Cimmerians, the Cimmerians, which is like near Russia, right? In the area of Russia. Indo-European, okay. Ancient Eastern Iranic equestrian nomadic people. Okay. So like let's look at what I can find. See, Cimmeria. Ancient name of Crimea. Look. Cimmeria, an ancient name of Crimea. Peninsula in the northern part of the Black Sea. So this is another part of the nations. What is Crimea? We all know what Crimea is. Right? This is if you don't know anything about the wars going on in Russia, that is damn near the beginning of the invasion of Russia, right? Salakia, let's read into it real quick. Crimean Peninsula, right, as Ukrainian territory occupied by Russia, right? See? Very simple. I ain't even got to go too far. There we go. We understand that what Crimea is. It's Cimmeria, right? But that's Gomer, right? So we see that Russia, which we see is a larger form of pretty much a nation, or well, Cimmeria are nations that surround pretty much Russia, right? We understand that Russia, the chiefest of Russia would be the chief prince of Moscow, right? So we understand that there will be nations that stand against America, an assembly that would destroy them, and them being the beast system, right? Let's look at Togomar. If I can say it, spell it right. Togarma, Salakia. Salakia, I don't know how to do that. Okay, the Caucasus Mountains. Right? Togarma. What is Togarma? Magog, see? Togarma. Ethnic groups in the Caucasus. See, so it's like It's literally like around this area, the Caucasus Mountains. It's literally looking at the same region, Tubal, Togarma, Mount Ararat, really around Turkey, Armenia, around that area, right? So Turkey, they're not exempt from hating the whore either. You see what I'm saying? So we see that multiple nations that are going to be prepared to assemble themselves against Babylon the Great. Chiefest of these nations would be Russia, and a bunch of nations would follow behind them, right? You had nations in the quote unquote Middle East and through Africa as well as all throughout Europe, that'll be standing against them, right? And don't forget we did mention the nations of the Isles, right? The nations of the Isles, right? Let's see. Salakia, the Isles. I don't know if it'll hint to anything different. Matter of fact, let me Salakia. I don't know why that even happened. Right? Dismiss. Okay. Salakia. Oh, here we go. Let's maybe this might be something we could use in the Isles. Okay. Maritime land, whether the sea coast of the continent or island. Okay, which the Indian DSIB denotes both shore, also specific. Okay. 26 equals 27. Huh. Let me see. Slovakia. Okay. An island, the coast of Elisha, i.e., the Peloponnesus or Greece. Okay. Okay. So pretty much it's the people of the Isles, right? People of the islands. But while we're at it, might as well grab this in the NLT and see what translation comes up. And I guess that'll be it after that. So like 39. Alright. Look, this is Ezekiel 39:6, and it says, "And I will rain down fire on Magog and on all your allies who live safely on the coasts. They that know, then they will know that I am the Lord," right? So we understand that these nations will be destroyed, right? Let's keep reading. Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, okay. Armies of, okay. Yeah, so we understand pretty much where we're at in regards to that, right? Why is this important? Because America just damn smacked Iran with a bunch of missiles, destroying the nuclear infrastructure. People think this is going to end with Iran being utterly destroyed. Can't be, because Iran is a part of larger biblical prophecy and will play a role in destroying Babylon the Great as a nation. You see what I'm saying? Because this is going to be the nation that stands with the nation that will be the leader, or will be a part of the nations that destroy Babylon the Great, right? Which would be a part of, the beast system, right? The head of the beast system, right? But Babylon the Great sits on the entire beast system, but Russia is still a part of him. Being that Gog and Magog, being that chief prince of Meshach, that is to that is prophesied to fight against, to go against the chosen of Israel. But Lord willing, is edifying video through the Spirit. I have to give honor and glory to the Most High God Yahweh, by Hashem, Mashiach, Malak, Yahushai. Like I said, Lord willing, is edifying video through the Spirit. Kwam Yasharallah, Shalom.